YouTube crew, what is going on? And welcome back to another video. Now, Rebirth Resurgence Extreme has returned, this time with 64 players. So today, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to be more successful, how to get more kills, and get more wins in this game mode. Look, 64 players is a lot of players for this map, so we're going to be talking about a few different things that you can do. As always, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, make sure you subscribe down below. Let's go hashtag Rebirth in the comments for the algorithm, and let's get into it. Format for today, I'm going to be giving you a few tips that you and your squad can use to ultimately be more successful. We're all rolling some gameplay that I had last night where I dropped 24 kills and we picked up the dub. So first things first, let's talk early game. Early game is obviously where a lot of the chaos happens. You have 64 people dropping into the map at one time. Now, what I will say is, be prepared no matter where you land. I don't care if you land security. I don't care if you land in the middle of nowhere. You're going to have probably one or two other teams dropping in with you. It's just the nature of how many people are dropping in. The hot areas, bio, control, prison, headquarters, become extremely hot. When we drop to control, where we usually do, we would have 3, 4, 5 teams landing there, and it's very hard to win that early game. Or essentially what happens is that early game takes way too long. You can't get your loadout, and then you're kind of stuck because you don't have loadout. You got to rotate over to loadout, or you get third-partied by somebody who has loadout already. So I actually switched up where I'm landing at. If you want to know where that is, pop by stream tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Twitch. But back into it. You want to be playing close together as a squad. You want to have really good comms and ultimately do whatever you have to do to win that early game. I would go as far as saying, if you need to pop a UAV to win early game, spend the $4,000 as opposed to trying to save it for loadout. Win your early game. And we are playing super close together. We're kind of on each other's hips to make sure that we can ultimately be successful and then go get loadout and then start pushing. So now let's talk about loadout. So what loadout should you be running? And look, I do think there are some slight changes that you could possibly make to have more success in this game mode. Now, your AR is going to stay the same. Could be the Cold War AK, could be the M4, whatever it may be. I love the M4. It's my gun right now. It's what I feel most comfortable with. But your SMG, I'm going to leave 3 builds down in the comments below for you. The Bullfrog, the PPSH, and the Bison. And the reason that I'm suggesting these 3 is because of the larger mag size. You are going to be getting third-partied, fourth-partied. There's going to be a lot of different things going on. So unless you're a super crack player who doesn't miss shots, I would recommend going with a gun that has a bigger magazine. Now, if you know me, you know that I run the 85-round Bullfrog all the time, which I just love using. It is super viable, but it really applies here because you don't have to reload as often. You can fight, 5 players on 1 magazine and be okay before having to reload. So that's what I would suggest loadout-wise. Run whatever AR you're most comfortable with. Then SMG, try out one of these 3 below. The Bullfrog and the PPSH, you have more mobility than the Bison, but the Bison, you do get the hip-fire advantage. So let's talk about some game strategy and give you a few tips there. Now, I thought a lot about what tips I should give you here, and I actually watched back gameplay from last night from our games to figure out what allowed us to be successful. And the difference between this game mode and normal Rebirth is exactly what you think it is. Everything's a little bit more heightened. Everything's a little bit more extreme and chaotic. So the first thing is, of course, as I always say, your cash flow. The UAVs in this game mode are going to be super important. And the reason being is, going back to our common theme in this, there's a good chance that you're going to be fighting multiple teams at one time. You're going to be getting third-partied. You're going to be getting fourth-partied. You kind of have to take one player at a time. But I don't want you in a situation where you're like, I just didn't know that team was there. The more you can keep UAVs up, the better off you're going to be. And this is going to allow you to determine who to push. My super crack players out there. When you pop UAV, I promise you, you're going to see 10, 15 people at prison. So you can go push that way, but you need to understand what level they're on. Now, for my players who aren't as confident, aren't as cracked, this is the difference between pushing prison and pushing Nova 6 where there's one team. You might push over towards Nova 6. It's going to allow you to make that decision of where to push. And there's going to be a lot of people everywhere. So you want to understand where they are, where they're rotating to, what level they're on. Is there a third party rolling in? Is there a fourth party rolling in? So all of those things can be kind of eliminated by understanding where people are and keeping those UAVs up. Second part of cash flow, and this might actually win you a game at some point. Now, I talk about this for normal Rebirth, but it is even more important in Rebirth Resurgence Extreme. I promise you, you want multiple loadouts down, and here's why. Because of the chaos, because of the action, because of the pace, a lot of players and teams are playing scared. They're basically sitting together as a squad, and they're not moving. So if your loadout lands top prison, there's a high probability that you are not going to be able to get it. If it lands anywhere around prison, there's a high probability that it's going to be very difficult to get to. or your loadout lands somewhere else outside of circle, and now once circle closes, you can't get it anymore. So when you focus on cash flow, you can get multiple loadies down. This way you can constantly be playing this game with loadout. Now I want to talk about dying here for a second. I promise you, you're most likely going to die more in this game mode than you will in Rebirth. Don't worry about that. Worry about the kills and worry about having success as a team. Focus on team survival here. If you drop 24 kills and you die 4 times, that's not an issue. Focus on the 24 kills. The chaos and the action will get the best of you. I promise. You're going to die more than you do in Rebirth. But again, focus on that team survival. Focus on getting kills or getting wins, whichever one you want to focus on. And ultimately... Actually, no. Let's go PR this. While we have this game mode, let's go drop some PRs, whatever that number may be is. Set that personal record for most kills in a game. Can we just take a moment to appreciate this revenge kill that's about to happen? Now let's talk a little bit of team strategy here, and my advice here is very simple for you. I want you to roll together as a squad, very close together, very good comms, until about the 30 or 40 mark, because at that point, you now have good control over the lobby, and it becomes more like a normal Rebirth game, and you can figure out what your next steps are. You know, in a normal Rebirth game, my squad gets loadout, and then we just kind of split. We just kind of go. Sometimes it's solo, sometimes we're rolling around in twos, but ultimately, we start to split off. So in this game mode, because of the chaos and the pace, and the constant third and fourth partying, we roll together until about 30 or 40 people are left, until we have good control of the lobby, and now we split off and start to really farm kills and play this as a normal Rebirth game. Now, unfortunately, you're not seeing that in this gameplay here because my teammates were randoms and didn't have comms, but that's what we ultimately had the most success with last night, is getting to that 30 or 40 mark, and then we start to split off and play this as a normal Rebirth game. Circle is tighter. You're going to have to be aware of that. You still want to pick... fight strategically. You still have to execute, hit your shots, use movement, use positioning to your advantage, pay attention to your cover, but it becomes much easier because you really take out a lot of that third and fourth party aspect. Okay, so before we hop into tips for endgame here, I want to quickly do a recap of everything that we just talked about because it's a lot. So, as you are deciding where to jump, keep in mind that the hot areas are going to be extremely hot. Anywhere else that you go, you should anticipate at least 1, if not 2 or more teams landing with you. So once you're down, grab a gun, focus on team play. You want to focus on sticking together and ultimately having really good comms so that you can win that early game. If you are struggling early game and need to, don't be afraid to pop a UAV so you understand where everybody's at and can ultimately win that early game and get loadout. Now, once you have loadout down, now we want to focus on cash flow, whether it's a scav, whether it's a supply run, whether it's a bounty, so that we can keep UAVs up and ultimately get multiple loadies on the ground in case you die. You want to have loadout in case you die. So we have UAVs up, we got a loadout down, now we are pushing teams. Be strategic about who you're pushing, and we want to push as a unit. We want to push close together, be near each other, be able to help each other, have good comms, until that 30 or 40 mark, until 30 or 40 players are left. And at that point, we switch to a normal Rebirth game. You can do whatever you want at this point. You can stick together as a squad, you can solo split, you can do whatever you want in between there. And ultimately, we're going to play out this mid-game until we get to end-game using UAVs, starting to rack up kills. But the most important thing is staying alive as a team. If you're the last person alive, just stay alive and make sure that your team respawns and then figure out what to do. The most important thing here is team survival. So now let's get into endgame. Okay, so I'm actually going to hop in here and break down this endgame. It's not something we've talked a lot about in terms of Rebirth. So I'm going to break down this endgame, taking you through my mentality. So just a few things to point out here. We were all kind of down by this Lodi or below prison. I popped UAV here, and notice where a circle is, right? So we're going to go ahead and play top prison here, and we know we have to rotate early so we can win top prison and ultimately be able to get the high ground. So as we are pushing over this way, Dayton and I have a nice little crossfire on this guy who's on our level, and you're going to see how we attack this. Dayton's going to keep him busy while I ultimately push up and am able to get the kill. But even there, Dayton's getting shots on him. So now immediately we see these two guys, and pay attention to the way they're rotating, right? They're rotating kind of towards this doorway. You just got to anticipate them being there. So I'm going to go ahead and anticipate them. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a guy top water tower who gets a clean shot on me. But ultimately, Dayton is there to get the, to kind of keep him busy. He breaks him there. My Life Be Like is also on the roof. And now we're in a good spot. He's going to go down here in a second. I'm going to break him there. And then he goes down right there. So now I'm going to keep peeking doorway because I'm anticipating them. That team below us is also trying to get to the roof. So we have to win this fight here. So I pop UAV. Again, keep UAVs up. I break that guy. Now we're going to push. I know there's one right below. So as I hear him stick to res. Now we're going to go ahead and challenge that and get both of those kills. So right now we have 3 other teams, 5 other people. We are dominating this end game right now in the sense of we have the most amount of people. We should not lose this game. And I'm going to go ahead and play aggressive here. Since my teammates are on roof, they're holding a good high ground. I'm going to go ahead and play this a little bit more aggressive here. We got basically, what do we got? 3 teams and 4 other people. I'm going to go ahead and push down, especially because we have UAV up. If we don't have UAV up, I'm not playing this as aggressive as I would because I'm not totally sure where everybody is. So I'm going to go ahead and play UAV. I know there's one right here. Ends up being down. I'm going to go ahead and get the thirst there. Then I see this guy. This guy catches my attention, right? And we have these 2 people over here. So I'm going to go ahead and push to the right side. And now all of a sudden we start to build this multi-angle attack, right? Because you'll see how this plays out. Ghost gets him. And now all of a sudden, look at where my teammates are. Look at where I am. We know the last few people are over this side of prison. Dayton had great comms there. He knew where they were. So now we're just going to hold here. This is a super easy hold. They're up top. I'm going to wait for them. And we have an easy pinch here. That's something that you should be setting up endgame. Now, it probably should be a 2v2 instead of a 3-1. But if you do have a very good player on your team, that person can kind of solo it. And those 3 people ultimately clutch up if they need to. But I'm going to get the team wipe there. At this point, it's a 1v4. And we just got to play this circle. We're going to hold circle rotation here. We know exactly, not exactly, but we have a good sense of where this person is. Person ends up being up top. And look, I want to talk about something here. He's gassed, right? Ghost is gassed. My life be like is underneath. I'm kind of in a weird spot here with this person having a heady. But look where Dayton is. So, like, even if he downs 2 of us, this guy's not going to live to see another day. I'm going to go ahead and hit shots here. And right there, you see ultimately that full game, how I dropped 24. We drop 32 as a squad. So, I hope you found today's video helpful. Go dominate Rebirth Resurgence Extreme. Go drop your PR. Let's get better today, and I will see you tomorrow.